For the second time this season, Pedro Neto is being targeted by Barcelona, and it's looking like they are interested in acquiring him in the summer to replace the outgoing Marcus Rashford. Blueco have done something right. Reece James has signed a 6-year deal. He's with us until 2032. It was announced this morning. And man, there is a lot of annoying, horrible stuff going on right now, but nailing Reece James down to a new contract is absolutely genius. But for every good with Blueco, there's a massive bad, isn't there? Because what they've also done is they held a meeting with a load of the Chelsea fans and Matita, content creator, and you probably know him pretty well if you're watching this channel, and they sent out Daniel Finkelstein to try and talk to the fans about how things are going on, and it didn't go well. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC, and we've got a wild load of news to talk to you about today. Transfer stuff, contracts, Blueco really shooting themselves in the foot, man, and if there is one way to galvanise people for another protest, and a bigger one this time, it's probably something like this, isn't it? But guys, before we get into it, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so we will start with the Pedro Neto stuff. Just in, Barcelona are monitoring Pedro Neto ahead of the summer window. His agent is Jorge Mendes. So look, like I said, this isn't the first time that this rumour has happened. It was actually just before we played Barcelona in the Champions League, when we beat them in our own backyard, that this rumour first emerged. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is the thing that has kind of made me think throughout the season. If we're going to sell one of our wingers, Pedro Neto is like the top one. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, he's not super young anymore, so, you know, and he's not developed into an absolute world beater, but he is really good and probably has the most value and is the easiest to sell out of the majority of the wingers that we have. Obviously, Barcelona have Marcus Rashford on loan from Manchester United, but he's going to be super expensive. Like, he's got massive wages and he is good out there, but, you know, Barcelona are not exactly super flush with cash. They can always buy a good player, and I think Pedro Neto would probably suit that Barcelona team really well as well, actually. He's been in patches, he's been great for us in patches, especially recently. He's been a little bit more difficult to watch. His petulance has started to come through. He got sent off against Arsenal. He's having fights with ball boys in the Champions League, which might have him banned for the next Champions League game, by the way. But ultimately, like I say, if you think about our winger situation, Garnacho and Jamie Gittins, we've only just brought in. Gittins is going to be really difficult to sell because he's really expensive and hasn't played much. Garnacho was cheap, but I imagine we'll probably keep him around for the next season at least. Cole Palmer and Esteval on the right wing, and we've got Giovanni Kenda coming in as well, who can play on either side of those flanks. And ultimately, we want to go out and buy a proper left winger, don't we? We really do. So yeah, it just makes sense that if we were going to sell anyone, Pedro Neto, it makes sense for him to be at the top of the list as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I've been really torn by Pedro Neto this whole season. Like, he's been sometimes a consummate professional and putting really solid performances, but other times he just goes missing. And like I say, recently the petulance and the attitude is starting to really become a problem. And he's supposed to be one of our experienced players, right? He's like 25 now, do you know what I mean? So look, he's in prime selling age at the end of the day. If you're another club looking at Pedro Neto, you're not looking at a 28-year-old who might only have a few years left. You're like, right, okay, I'll get half a decade out of him minimum. And the type of player that he is, you know, like Willian was really good when up until he was like 30 for the most part. Do you know what I mean? I feel very much the same way about Pedro Neto, although I would argue Pedro Neto's got a bit more attacking impetus. He's managed to essentially completely get rid of his injury worries that really plagued him while he was at Wolves. And yeah, I don't know, man, it's a difficult one, but I've kind of seen it coming for a while, to be completely honest. We need to sell. He's not got massive wages, but it will take a chunk off of the squad cost ratio for the year, which will allow us to go out and, you know, sign extra players and put them on those sort of wages, as well as just getting the liquid cash from his sale. So Pedro Neto to Barcelona, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Not even just Barcelona, like Pedro Neto in general. Like, do you think it's a good idea to sell him? Do you think we should keep him? I'm a little bit concerned about having only Quenda and Esteval Willian, both who will be 19 next season, as our right wing options. Do you know what I mean? And that's me expecting Cole Palmer to move back into the middle, even though that he's played on the right quite a lot recently. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. But in absolutely fantastic news, and I'm so happy to see this. I've talked about this with a few of my mates recently. Reece James has signed a new deal. Oh, thank God, Reece James has signed a new deal. He at the end of the season, he was only going to have 2 years left on his contract. He's obviously a highly sought after, very valuable player. Like, there are very few teams in world football that wouldn't like a bit of Reece James. And my opinion has been with Reece James, just give him whatever he wants. He's proper Chelsea. He's the captain. Absolutely unbelievable technical player. He has grown into that leadership role so well. And largely, whether he's in midfield, right centre back or right back, he normally just looks like one of the best players on the pitch. And in order to build a strong team going forward, keeping people like Reece James is 100% going to be a massive part of that, right? So Reece James spoke himself on how he feels about signing a new contract. I am over the moon to have extended my contract. Chelsea means so much to me. I've always said I want my peak years to be here, and I truly believe we have everything it takes to build on our previous successes. So look, he's proper Chelsea, man. We love that, don't we? Like, I literally saw this morning, and after the PSG noise and the other news that we're going to get into about Blueco later in this video, I was just like, oh, thank you. Thank you for some modicum and morsel of good feeling about being a Chelsea fan, in that we are keeping Reece James. And look, it's just one of them, innit? Like, hopefully, you know, I hope to see Marc Cucurella tied down to a new deal as well. And, you know, hopefully that tells us, regardless of how difficult things are, if someone like Reece James, whose stock is arguably, other than João Pedro, or maybe alongside João Pedro, the highest. Do you know what I mean? His stock is the highest in our squad. And, you know, I was always of the opinion, like, I thought it might be difficult to sell him because we want a lot of money for him, and he would want big wages. He's on 300k a week. Do you know what I mean? Who comes in for him on that kind of money? You know, someone would, wouldn't they? Let's be completely honest. When there's Reece James as well, not an old player, like 24, 25, nearly 25 years old. So, you know, there was a lot of reason to be worried about Reece James entering into the twilight of his contract. But he signed until 2032. He's not going anywhere. We can all breathe a collective sigh of relief and enjoy our Reece James shaped captain for seasons and seasons to come. Yes. Right, and now I'm going to move on to the Blueco stuff, man. This is wild. So I was doing a live stream last night with Kai, and we were doing a post-mortem of the PSG game. Things have been bad recently in that respect, you know what I mean? One of the guys in the chat dropped just saying PYS tweet, and Kai looked it up and read it out on the stream, and I was like, oh, mate. So here it is, and I'm going to read it out, and we're going to just sort of dissect it and go through it together, but I'm not going to lie. The thing that's like, I mean, this is rubbish and annoying anyway, but the thing that's even more rubbish and annoying about this is this comes only days after Feliciano did an interview with Bloomberg talking about how Chelsea fan culture is really important. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, then all of a sudden, this is dropping about a conversation that Daniel Finkelstein is one of the Chelsea board. So we're not talking about the ownership. We're not talking, we're not talking about a Clearlake guy or Todd Bowley or one of the sporting directors. I'm not really sure what this guy's like. He's a board member. Do you know what I mean? He's a board member, and I'm not sure how much influence he has on the club because I've never seen his face. He was the old man in the thumbnail. Never seen his face. I heard his name until today, but he's got a lot to say to Chelsea fans about what's going on at Chelsea, and it starts like this. Major breaking. This is PYS. Reposted this. A group of fans met with the club director recently and said they were met with arrogance and dismissiveness. Oh, that's good, isn't it? Brilliant. Yes, it's all about fan culture, except when the fans want to know what's going on with their club and then you are arrogant and dismissive about it. That is not good. So they covered a lot of subjects. On the departure of Maresca, the director said that a coach's overall impact is overestimated and there was no statistical relationship between managers and results. So that just seems wild, doesn't it? Like, obviously there is a statistical relationship between managers and results. Pep Guardiola wins everywhere he goes. Jurgen Klopp came into Liverpool and turned them into absolute world beaters. You know, and Antonio Conte, serial winner. Do you know what I mean? It's like, to say that there's no relationship between managers and results just seems absolutely wild. The thing is, the one thing I will say about this, and this isn't to disprove or whatever, not to disagree with any of it, but this is purely from the side of the fans that went in to have the conversation. So, you know, it's one of those things. But ultimately, most of this must be true because it's so detailed. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it straight away, like, Maresca for me was massively at fault after 18 months and having the squad that he had for the results he got. Don't get me wrong. Do I think the squad was good enough to challenge for the largest honours? No, I didn't think that. And that obviously comes down to the sporting directors and the ownership and the model, of course. But could Maresca have been doing better than he was doing when he walked away, by the way? He walked away. He didn't get sacked. He walked away. Yes, I do think he could. But ultimately, I do think there's a massive link between managers and results. You can have a really good team, obviously, but your manager, like I say, I've just given loads of examples of why I think that's ridiculous. So already we're off to a bad start. According to the board director, problems with Maresca stemmed from him not being offered some of the same contract details that the sporting directors have in place. No, that's very vague, that one. Do you know what I mean? Very vague. Like, we know that Maresca, I mean, he was throwing paddies. Do you know what I mean? He was throwing his toys out of the pram a little bit, because when he signed for this project, they will have told him exactly how it was going to be, and there was an idea. Like, he wanted, for instance, to like write a book, and they were like, no, we don't want you to write a book, we want you to focus on your job. He wanted more control in the transfer window and the targets that were coming in, and to be able to control his team, and they said, no, this is how it's going to be. So when he signed for that deal. So I don't have much in the way of sympathy for Maresca, because for walking, do you know what I mean? And it just seems like a really weird thing there, doesn't it? Like, the same contract details that the sporting directors have in place, they are different jobs. Do you know what I mean? They're different jobs. Like, the sporting director and a manager is like crazy different. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy different. So I don't really understand even where that comes from, to be honest. The director could not be put on a timeline when Chelsea will compete at the top again, but it was effing obvious we are building one of the best teams in the world. The director denied that they were being condescending and told us we have no more right to be upset than they do, despite the fact we are paying fans. Now, this is whoever this guy is, this Daniel Finkelstein man, like, he needs to go to some sort of lessons on how to talk to people, because if this is verbatim what he said, this is absolutely outrageous. So look, it's difficult to put a timeline on when we're going to compete, even if, like, look at Liverpool. Liverpool spent 500 million in the summer, literally $500 million in the summer on new players, and they're not putting timelines on, you know, they were supposed to challenge for the league, and they didn't. It is really difficult to do that, do you know what I mean? Arteta's had 8 years at Arsenal, and as of right now, still hasn't won anything, and he never came out and was like, oh, I'm going to win a trophy in 8 years. I'm going to win a Premier League. I'm going to win the Champions League in the next 8 years. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't really buy the putting timeline things on it, because that's just not how football works. And I think if you're expecting that as a fan, you're going to be disappointed, because when has anyone ever come in and said, I'm going to do this in this, apart from Ange Postecoglou? Apart from Big Ange, this is just the way we are, mate. Apart from Ange coming out and saying, I always win something in my second season, and that actually happened, you know, fair play to him for that. But in general, like, with these projects and big football, yeah, it just doesn't happen, does it? Like, we don't get timelines. So I think that's a ridiculous question to begin with, to be honest. What isn't good about this is the director denied they were being condescending and told us we have no more right to be upset than they do. Like, that's ridiculous, man. If you are being accused of being condescending, you don't condescendingly tell people that you're not being condescending. Do you know what I mean? Because all he's done there is, like I say, if that's verbatim, you've literally just proved the point of what they're saying to you. If someone thinks you're being condescending, you zoom out, you take a step back, you think about your words, and then you approach it differently, right? Because the paying fans are the lifeblood of the club, one way or the other. If you don't have fans, you don't have a club. If no one's going to your matches, if no one's buying your merch and your shirts, and if no one's paying for season tickets or whatever, do you know what I mean? It's like the club doesn't exist at the end of the day. So to be so flippant around fans and fan culture after Feliciano coming out in Bloomberg and being like, oh, it's all about community and fan culture, like, that's absolutely outrageous, and they've just got no time for it at all. The club's effort to reduce the wage bill has seen a means of offsetting the spend on players so far, and the director was honest about there being no appetite to compete for more established Premier League signings for this reason. A handful of players that have been successful for us were given as some sort of justification for this approach. So I understand that, right? They came in and they put in the wage structure, didn't they? Apart from Reece James, like, no one else is on 300k a week, basically. And they've made everyone had to build their wages over good performances. I don't think that is inherently a bad thing, and it did give them more wiggle room to spend more money. Now, they've spent the money badly, that's the problem, but the concept of lowering the wages and not just paying anyone who wants 500k a week, like, that's not a bad thing at all. Do you know what I mean? You need to have something to achieve. Now, and again, so that is like, I don't hate the fact that we've cut the wage bill. I think it's ridiculous how we've spent the money. If we freed up all of this extra money to go out and buy all of these players, then it you know, the wage cutting has worked, because look, we've got Enzo Fernandez, we've got Moises Caicedo, we've got Cole Palmer, we've got João Pedro, we've got Marc Cucurella, we've got lots of these really good players who agreed to be on this wage structure, and it has allowed us to go out and buy more players. The problem is the model of players that they've been going for, and the identifying the quality of players that they've been going for hasn't been working. So look, in that one, I don't disagree with the concept of cutting the wage bill. and making people want to work for it. I think that's a good thing, and I think more football clubs should do that in general. What I have a problem with is how they've spent the money, and that's what we all have a problem with, isn't it? Because Garnacho and Jamie Gittins and all of these guys, they just haven't done the business, have they? The club director spoke very disrespectfully about what was achieved under the previous ownership and the individuals involved in that time. In their view, the current project, consisting of vast expenditure and player churn, is the only means which we can hope to compete at the elite level at some point in the future. So look, I've got no love for anyone that puts down the achievements at the end of the day. Roman's achievements. Look, Roman wasn't perfect, right? We've got the 75 charges, and Roman is, largely responsible for the absolute outrageous inflation in football money and how spending has changed and stuff. Do you know what I mean? There were definitely negative, impacts that Roman Abramovich had on Chelsea and football, but you can't take away the culture, the players, the trophies, the moments. Do you know what I mean? Is like the Roman Abramovich era of Chelsea is one of the most phenomenal pieces of football history anywhere. Just in terms of, like, you talk about great eras and great periods, like, he was just a winner. Do you know what I mean? More so at the start, less so at the end, but ultimately throughout 20 years we are peppered with trophies, and our winning mentality, the fact that they bought Chelsea FC in the first place with the winning mentality that we've got, is almost entirely in part to Roman Abramovich. So to be disrespectful of that, no time for that at all. You can look at the business side of it. Like I say, at the end of the day, what we do know is that Bluco came in and they brought the issues, the under the table issues, which we don't talk about very often. We're all fine talking about Man City's 115, but we don't talk about our own enough, I don't think. The 75 charges that are being levied against us for breaking financial rules were brought to the FA and the Premier League by Bluco. And those are things that Roman Abramovich did. So yes, zooming out from a business perspective, it wasn't sustainable. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't sustainable. And probably that when it started getting harder to do this kind of thing, that probably coincides with our ultimate drop-off. Do you know what I mean? It's like Eden Hazard, for instance, one of the accusations is that Eden Hazard and his agent got millions under the table that weren't on the books. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff like that was a little bit dodgy. So yeah, sure, from a business perspective, but you can't question the sporting side of it. You absolutely can't question the sporting side of it. Jose Mourinho, Ancelotti, Antonio Conte, do you know what I mean? Even Thomas Tuchel, like, we brought in winners that created winning teams, and we created superstars, and we turned average players into world beaters. Victor Moses, do you know what I mean? So absolutely zero time for this board member, Daniel Finkelstein, if he is representing the feelings of Bluco and the Chelsea hierarchy as a whole. Absolutely awful. No time for that. Chelsea simply cannot afford to compete for the likes of Semenyo and Gerhi, and that the players with resale value is a more realistic approach. Don't believe that for a second. That's dumb. Do you know what I mean? This is what makes me think this guy who spoke to these fans can't know what he's talking about. Gerhi was like 20 mil. And yes, he was on a lot of money, but he's not going to be on a super long contract. Of course we could afford Mark Gerhi. We could have afforded Mark Gerhi when Liverpool went in for him. Now, if we were rejected by Mark Gerhi because he didn't like the idea of the sporting project, fine. But to say we couldn't afford him was ridiculous. Semenyo, the same. Do you know what I mean? Semenyo, like, we could have afforded Semenyo. Of course we could. Whether Semenyo wanted to come to us or not, another question entirely. They both went to Man City, who have been challenging for Premier League titles for year upon year upon year for the last decade. It is not wild to think that we were rejected by their players, but to come out and say that we can't afford them when we've spent so much money on players that have absolutely flopped. It's nearly 70 mil on Mykhailo Mudryk. Garnacho's not been good this season. Jamie Gittins hasn't been good this season. We spent money on Raheem Sterling. We paid Raheem Sterling 300k a week for like 4 years, and he barely even played for us. So to say that we can't afford those players is a joke. I don't agree with that at all. The club director expressed surprise that in the view of the club still being 13 points off the top of the table at this time, this has risen to 19 points at the time of writing. In the fourth season of a transitional period, fans are not showing more patience, although the director admitted that they hope for more progress this season. So the thing is, like, again, I kind of go back to where I was before. I don't think you can put a time limit. I think we as fans can. We as fans can say what we expect. Of course we can. But as the custodians of the club, I don't think you can say we're going to win the Premier League in 5 years. I think that's kind of crazy. But at the same time, they did come out at the start and say after 4 transfer windows, you're going to start to see something. We are now 5 transfer windows in, and we're still not looking like competing And there are lots of obvious reasons for that. Do you know what I mean? There are lots of obvious reasons for that. So yeah, again, there's a lot of like hypocrisy in this, I think. And like I say, who's this Daniel Finkelstein guy, man? Who is he? Like he if this guy's a board member and he's saying stuff like this, he can't have a massive idea about what's going on. I'm a YouTuber. I'm no one, man. Do you know what I mean? I'm absolutely no one, but I follow my club every single day, and I think some of this stuff is hypocritical and ridiculous. The last one, Luis Enrique would not be the right fit for us as a manager, and John Terry is not the right fit professionally and should not be involved in the first team affairs. So on the Luis Enrique thing, look, the right fit for us as a manager on a sporting level is ridiculous because of course he is. He's brilliant. Do you know what I mean? He plays a good style of football. He's good at working with young players. I think what they're saying there is they would have the same sort of problem with Luis Enrique as they did with Thomas Tuchel. I think the personalities are too big, and I think they were going to cause too much ruckus, essentially. So when they say not the right fit for us as a manager, I can only surmise that they're not actually talking about Luis Enrique as a tactical football man. I just assume they're talking about him as a character and a personality, because we've already seen that with Thomas Tuchel. And you look at the guys that they've brought in: Graham Potter, Enzo Maresca, Liam Rosignol, much more relaxed, chill people in general who look like they were coming just to try and fit the sporting project, right? So essentially what I think they're saying there is Luis Enrique wasn't enough of a yes man. The John Terry thing, to me, sounds a bit short-sighted. And again, I think there's a hypocrisy in there. So quite recently, John Terry came out and mentioned about being disappointed that he wasn't called up to the first team when Callum McFarlane was, right? Callum McFarlane, the under-20s manager, under-21s manager who took control of the club before we brought Liam Rosignol in. He got the job as Liam Rosignol's assistant straight away. John Terry has struggled to get into the project, right? And for instance, they already brought Frank Lampard back as an interim. So, again, I think it's a personality thing. I think John Terry is probably just very vocal about the things that he think are wrong with the club, even though he works there. And the thing that I find hypocritical about that in particular is they hired a guy, a mentality coach. You remember, like, the guy that came from rugby? We literally hired a guy from rugby into football to help the players with mentality. It was a big part of helping Robert Sanchez get his confidence back and stuff. And you're telling me that John Terry's not a good professional fit for the club? Like, are you mad, bro? Are you mad? Like, that's wild. Absolutely wild. John Terry would galvanise that squad, and he would bring that captain's thing to the squad, to the dressing room. He would dig Philip Jorgensen out for not clapping and going over to the fans after that horrendous performance against PSG. John Terry, whether he's always the, most professional, maybe he uses a couple of superlatives here and there, do you know what I mean? Maybe, but he's a big character. That's why we won things in the first place. So I just think that's hypocritical there, because at some point in recent history, we've literally hired a guy from another sport to focus on people's mentality. Even if John Terry isn't the most tactically astute guy that's available, and I don't know because I don't know enough about his managing career. He's got his badges and all that. But even if he isn't that way inclined, the mentality that he can help bring and foster, and the way he can bring, like, he's a Cobham boy. Do you know what I mean? He's a Cobham boy. He's the most famous Chelsea Academy graduate ever. And you want that guy in your dressing room so other Chelsea Academy graduates can look at him and be like, I'm here right now, but I could be there one day. Absolutely wild. Don't agree with that at all. So look, mental, man. And just so that's the whole post from the fans that spoke to him. Another interesting thing there is that separately, Matisse, MAH. Now, I love Matisse. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think he's one of the best Chelsea content creators out there at the moment. He's so passionate. He's so raw. He's got excellent baller knowledge. He's absolutely hilarious. And he was also invited to speak to Daniel Finkelstein, I think it is, right? So what the weird thing is it wasn't all at the same time. They spoke to Matisse separately, and he has basically come out, and PYS posted, Chelsea content creator Matisse confirms he met Chelsea board member Daniel Finkelstein along with other fans to share concerns. Matisse says that despite the message, he still has no trust, and the club are being stubborn and will continue their way and approach. So that's two separate things now. We've got Matisse and the other Chelsea fans that are saying they're just not listening to us. Matisse said in his tweet, just to clarify, yes, Daniel Finkelstein invited me to a meeting along with other fans around the time of the protest to shed some light on answer to the many problems we have with the ownership, from commercial deals, lack of front of shirt sponsor, first team and multi-club model purchases via wherever that was posted from or whatever. So look, Matisse is coming out and, saying that he shares the same issues essentially, which, is a good thing. Is like, I think it's all fine and good. You know, there's been a lot of content creators that have been supporting the protest and this, that, and the other, but Matisse is going there and doing it, and now he is, although this happened a little while ago, by the sounds of it, he's coming out and saying, yeah, I didn't feel that they listened to us, and I don't feel any better about the situation either. So massive big up to Matisse. I think he's absolutely fantastic content creator, and it's really good that he came out and confirmed this. Do you know what I mean? When he could have just kind of said nothing. So that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there. So what do you think of all of today's news? So we'll start with the Pedro Neto stuff. Pedro Neto to Barcelona, or just being sold in general. What do you think? Get it in the comments. Reece James signs a new deal. Basically, the only thing we've got to be happy about as Chelsea fans at the moment, and obviously that massive list of concerns I've just gone through with the Chelsea fans who had the conversation with Daniel Filkenstein, I keep saying Steen. But yeah, like, let me know what you think about that, and what, like, more than just Blueco out. Like, I know that a lot of you guys are just going to come in and say Blueco out, and that's fine, man. Like, 100% agree with that. But, you know, tell me what you think about some of the individual points, where your major concerns are in there, and what actually realistically can be done about it, right? Is this going to lead to more protests? Like, I don't know. I think they've really shot themselves in the foot here. They had an opportunity. And like I say, because what you've got is Feliciano coming out a week ago in a Bloomberg interview saying, it's all about fan culture and community. And then you've got Daniel Finkelstein talking to the fans, and they have all walked away from this meeting like, this is awful. Could this force the hand of Blueco to make some changes? And, you know, how much is this going to affect Chelsea as a club if things don't get rectified soon? Nice one, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you did, I will catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.